I don't think, are we missing anyone? I don't think we are, technically. So moving on, then announcements. We have, oh, sorry, we got to adopt the agenda. We got a motion to do that.
I move to adopt the agenda.
Kim seconds. Any opposed? All right. So announcements, we're currently accepting applications to fill a few vacancies that we'll be having on our committee. I believe staff's been posting that in the e-blast and getting that message out via a couple mechanisms. Obviously, if you guys know anyone who's interested in participating, tell them to submit a volunteer application on the website. I believe we have 3 vacancies to fill. So we are going to have 3. Technically, Richard, Ty were appointed basically to serve one committee, with the understanding that they would do a 3-year term afterwards. And Elise's term ended at the AGM. Brian is shifting over into the chair role, and he's going to take over kind of running the meetings next meeting. We didn't really have much time to connect here between the AGM and now to get on the same page with everything. And so Steffi's obviously no longer on our committee anymore. Brian will be the chair. I'll be taking Steffi's role as the second board member then. And Kim will be leaving us because her role technically is for a community member to participate. And since she's on the board, we feel it's prudent to give a community member a chance to step up into that role. And then we'll have to fill, so we'll have Richard and Ty taking over for a 3-year term, and we'll get that approved at the December board meeting. And then we'll get, me and Brian will select one more candidate from our pool of applicants that we get to be approved with Richard and Ty at that board meeting for a 3-year term. And then the bylaws say for any resignations or other reasons why a seat becomes vacant, that we bring those vacancies to the committee to select those people. And so Brian's 2-year term will become vacant. Well, he has 2 years remaining on his committee member term, will become vacant since he's moving into the chair role. And with Kim leaving us, she'll have 1 year remaining on her term. And so we'll have to fill that as well. And we'll bring basically whatever we have left from the applicant pool that me and Brian don't select, we'll bring to the committee to pick the last 2 spots. And so that's, just wanted to kind of give everyone a heads up of how that was going to work. I did kind of lay that out in an email for everyone. Just want to make sure the community is aware of those opportunities to step up and participate. Yeah, does anyone else have any other announcements they'd like to make? No. So I think we're just, I think our main focus right now is
I'm sorry. I just realized I'm so busy looking at my computer. I didn't realize he turned the light off on me and it went dark. I apologize. I'm sorry. I just saw the screen and realized it was dark. I'm sorry. It just made me, I'm sorry. Just ignore me. Go ahead.
Okay. So pretty much we're just continuing on with the survey. What we have kind of set for deliverables to the community at this point is our preliminary survey results report, which we went over at the last meeting, and I sent you guys all, I don't know, it was like a week or so ago, the survey results table, so people could take a look at the percentages of, how each of those questions were responded to, and kind of compare that to the, or the statements that we were making in the preliminary report that we sent you for the last meeting. And so, we've also further tabulated the random sampling stuff, and we have kind of a comparative analysis between the two so that we can look to see if there's any major discrepancies between the two formats, which was kind of the purpose of the random sampling, was to kind of corroborate our online, since we weren't sure what sort of cross section we were going to get by doing an online only survey. And so I think largely we'll just kind of have a discussion about, what sort of differences that we saw between the random sampling results and the online survey results, and kind of move from there. And just going to note too that I guess I didn't realize Mike DeVolio is not here.
So, so AJ, you want me to just do the screen sharing and pull this up? Would that be easy? Or
Sure.
okay.
I think that could be handy.
It might work. I don't know.
So we sent out the tables that kind of showed all the percentages. I believe Sonia did some color coding, so it could be a little bit more visually. You can kind of see, if the colors are matching up between the two percentages and stuff.
Okay. Can everybody see it? Okay. So obviously, left-hand column is all your questions. We used basically, color coding, like he was saying. So what you see is that the lowest percentages are in red, the highest percentages are in green. So it's not really an indicator that one's good or one's bad. It just means that less people responded to that question, that category. So it's not about positive or negative. It's just simply about percentages. And the one thing that's really apparent, so some things.
Sonia, can you zoom in a little?
Yeah. What do you need me to? What do you want me to look at?
That might be a little too far. I don't know. Richard was.
It was just in general. If you could make it a little bigger and see how we good to go. That's fine. I can follow along on my own screen.
Okay, so basically, what you'll see here, we'll just start with the return rate and everything. I'll just walk you through that really quick, because what we did have is 1,173 people did respond to the online survey, but we did a really good job about removing the invalid responses, the ones that were the repeat IP addresses. It actually lists what they were. And I know that AJ explained a lot of that at the last meeting, but it does appear that a good number of people either reviewed it before they went in and actually completed it, because there were 123 that were completely unfilled, other than the first screener question. And then they went back in and completed the survey. So we don't think there was anything malicious with that. And we did hear that there were some people that were being thrown offline. And so that may account for some of those. And then there were just 123 duplicate, where there were some that had like seven times they had gone in and done it, those kind of things. So what we did is we just took the very first entry, and then we removed all the additional. So ultimately, we ended up with 819 owner responses. We did not count the renter responses in this total to come up with our response rate, even though they're valid to us, right? But we didn't, just for the sake of a response rate, we didn't count that. But you can see the breakdown. So we have 861 valid online responses for a response rate of almost 32% out of a possible 2789. Because, and again, that was explained last week or last meeting, that it's a per member owner, not a per lot opportunity. Over on the random sampling, there were 221 completed surveys returned. We received 20, and we just received a few, like we received 20 after the date, after the cutoff date. Some of that may have been because we were coming in, during the national elections, and there's problems with mail. We did have a couple of the Canadian residents who said that they didn't even get their postcard until the survey had closed. So that's something we have to think about moving forward. But still, we did get a 22% response rate. And the interesting thing is, as you go down this, for the most part, the random sampling actually agrees with the, the random sampling actually agrees with the, with our online, except in certain areas. And it's primarily in areas that are like trending controversies, like on social media, or like that are potentially hot topics. It's not a dramatic difference, but there is some difference, and you can see it when you when you look there. Like there was a little bit of a difference when you're talking about the congested, how the association deals with the seasonally congested areas, and the people that responded online answered more negatively than the random sampling, which was interesting. It's too big now for me to find what I was looking for. But for the most part, as you can see, consistently, people are really happy. This green here is telling you that everybody is saying yes. They're rating the community above average to above. The ACC guidelines, the majority of the community, 3/4 of the community believes that the rules and regs do protect our property values, but 45% don't believe they're enforced properly. So that's a significant, I'm going to skip over the financial part. I mean, some of this was real obvious, but I think we decided that we're not going to do that. The one thing that does obviously jump out is, I'm sorry, let me be clear. We're not going to do it like for the infographic, because for this meeting, we're just trying to get clarity on the infographic and discussion of those pieces, right? So I'm not trying to skip over that. I'm just saying that I just want to get real clear about what we're putting in the infographic, and that we're in agreement on that. One thing has to do with Sun Valley's image and reputation. It consistently scored low. You can see that on the, that green column is, like I said, the highlighted header green is the online, and the blue is the random sampling. It's consistent, it's low. And let's see, so how Sun Valley communicates with the residents. So it talks about the readability and quality of the views and the other things. The interesting thing about this, and it's lower down, well, maybe I shouldn't go there, but I do think we should consider the views has above average to above average ratings, basically, from the community. So there's that. The other interesting thing is, I know a lot of people we kept hearing repeatedly about, emergency preparedness, wildfire mitigation. But if you look on here, you can see the community is not so concerned with that. They feel like that's being taken care of for the most part. It seems to be not the biggest concern. The biggest concern has to do with the safety of pedestrians and school children and cyclists. That's right here. And then the second one, and those were the only two that were really significant in the below. And I'm not counting security because we need security, and so you know what I mean. And again, if you look, that's one of those hot trending topic type things, and you can see that there's a difference between the online and the random sampling. There's the people that did the random sampling were more satisfied with security than the online results. So, you know, that's again something to think about. You know, but on when you're talking about services and the community overall, the pattern is pretty consistent. So again, so safety of pedestrians, school children, cyclists, hazard tree management, those scored low. Everything else did, you know, well, including a high score on how Sudden Valley communicates hazard situations. This is the one, this management of seasonally congested public spaces. You know, again, it's a lower, it scored lower here than it did with the written one. The board scored low pretty much across the board, except that in both they basically did pretty well. Like, as you can see, I mean, it's still kind of close, but the online said 44% of the membership believes that the board encourages member participation. 55.5% of the random sampling believes that the board encourages member participation. So I think you can start to see the consistency there, even if we're off by a few percentages, but that's a significant percentage. That's 11% difference. Again, and I think that might be something, you know, it speaks to how people are involved in the community, I think. It may also, you know, maybe, I don't know. We are not going to the GM questions. That's something that we're going to talk about at a later date, because as you can see on here, the results, sorry, I went too far. The results are not, God dang it. The results are not conclusive. And whether it is because the community does not understand the GM's role or we did not ask the right questions is something that we're going to need to talk about. We need to talk to the GM about, and we need to talk to the board to see what may have happened here. But if you notice, most of the responses are in the don't know column. We did ask very similar questions as what we asked of the board, and the community could answer that, but they couldn't answer it when it came to the GM. Food for thought. Okay, so I'll just I'm going to skip over to, give me just 1 second. I'm going to skip over to another one and just finish up with the breakdown to make it go faster here. Hold on. 1 sec. Okay. Sorry. So, okay, here we go.
So largely the online and the random sampling, you know, a big takeaway is that they largely, you know, matched and mirrored each other, except for just a couple areas, basically.
Right. So this column, this thing right here that I just pulled up. So, and I'll send this to everybody, and this will show you like So what I did is I put when there was a difference between the two over here on this side. So it's not many times that it happened, but it did. And I ranked because, you know, people gave their feedback on importance. And so we ranked importance. So there's a little bit of difference on, you know, what members felt were important, which was interesting here, and why I left it in this. The random sampling, when you list what you feel is how important the following are to the quality of residents' life, the number one was beaches and swim areas. So over on the online, it was trails, but I just thought that was interesting. Beaches and swim areas is number 3 for the online, but it was number 1 for the random sampling. So the one that's okay. So as far as satisfaction, because we did an important satisfaction, and what you see. And I want to clarify something because I know disc golf is in here, and I have it on here just because very few things scored low in satisfaction. As you can see, everything scored really high for the most part. So even the lowest scoring ones didn't score that low, but actually, and I somehow didn't put the percentage in here, but the lowest scoring was these two. Sorry, I don't know why I didn't put the percentages, but they're like 12 and 13%. So still, even that's not bad, but it's the worst scoring as far as satisfaction was the common area maintenance and landscaping. And the second had to do with the golf course walk times that's open to the community. So it's not bad, you know.
But they're not satisfied with them because they want more times, right?
Right. And
not that they're dissatisfied with the community walk times. It's just that they want more.
They want more. and a lot of people ask for the course to be open in the mornings, like, you know, early before the course, you know, the course times and everything, and to allow people to walk in the mornings too. So there was a lot of good suggestions about that. And, but yeah, you're exactly right. I'm glad you pointed that out, Kim. And, but again, people are very happy for the most part. The only difference in these two categories, the online and the random, is just there's a 10% difference in how the picnic pavilions were scored. And it's just that the random sampling scored the picnic areas and pavilions higher at 80%, 81% satisfaction rate. So that's a pretty high satisfaction rate, actually. So this next section, you know, there was a question here that asked, how often had you used these facilities? So the ones that you see here, I left everything that was over 50%. So these are the never columns. This should have been on this side, but anyway, the online sampling basically, gosh, I don't know why every time I highlighted it, I guess it somehow made my my percentage disappear, but the lowest, the highest one was tennis, like was the least visited, but you know, you've got sorry, I take that back, it's disc golf. I'm sorry, Adam, but it's again, we talked about that, or I heard you guys talk about it. It's not necessarily it's, you know, that's something to consider. It's a lot of people haven't played it. They're not familiar with it. But the interesting thing is if you notice, so the second column, the first column says 85% have never played disc golf. And the second
Can I interject one thing too, because I'm not sure if everybody on the committee is aware of the disc golf course and the, a few facts about it, that Sudden Valley pays $0 for it. Absolutely nothing. The Whatcom Disc Golf Club asks for nothing. Everything that is seen out there that has been improved, it's literally been done by the Whatcom Disc Golf Club. And there are $5,000 worth of baskets out there, $1,000 worth of T-pad signs, a complete navigation system, and it does, again, rate extremely high. So it just, as that's talked about, it's kind of a very different thing in that it's a unique amenity provided that is free and open to anyone. It's not in the same league as Ken's Cozy Kitchen, maybe for, say, the library, but not really, because it's not taking, until we see a better proposal for that piece of property that's on paper that's going to say, hey, it's going to make us money or whatever.
No, I agree, and that's why I wanted to emphasize that too, because it's really about promotion, and that's that was one of the things you had brought up, is that you were just starting to promote, and I think it's Sun Valley needs to, and that's something we can talk to the communications committee about too, because I do think that's part.
Question, Adam, have you ever taken out an ad, since the views is so favorably liked? Have you ever put an ad in the views to introduce?
There was, initially when we got after our first meeting with the board, there was an article in the views. I have one sitting and ready. It's best that it probably goes out in the spring, because right now it's really, nobody's into going out and exploring something new and having a fun time in this crappy weather. Only hardcore disc golfers are out now.
Right.
But it is something that we do want to promote. The disc golf club, it's sitting in my garage, has bought a disc golf basket that we are giving to the Sudden Valley community. They run like $40 $50 a piece, and we want to install down at the community center for something to expand disc golf awareness in Sudden Valley. Eventually do programs down there, little putting clinics, or COVID effed us, if you can say, a lot of our plans for this year. And I think I have, there's been a report, I think both Karen Boucher from Parks gets it, and I forwarded it on to AJ too, that I prepare each year, that has kind of the full detail of everything we've done this year, and that too.
But the good thing about it is a socially distant sport.
Oh yes, it is.
That's what I was going to say. And if you see the pattern on here too, is that consistently the parks and trails and the outdoor recreation type activities that's what scores high consistently on what people are interested in, what they're happy with, and what they want.
That's why people live out here.
Right, exactly. And so I think it's people just need to know about it. And what I was going to say too is and just point out, because interestingly enough, the online responses said 85% had never played the disc golf course, but the random sampling said 75. That's 10%. That's 10% difference in the number of people. That's 10%. So I think I would go more with that 75 number. You know what I'm saying? I think, that we got a really good result on the random sampling across pretty much all the gates and everything. And so I think that's probably a little more accurate number. And yeah, so I don't want anybody, I know AJ said this last time, but no actions being taken. And this is to help, and I don't think anybody's saying, yeah, let's get rid of disc golf. That's not the goal here, is to see what's going on with this, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If I may, I do take it more as too, as I see Scott's raising his hand, but the promotion needs to happen, and that's the bane of my existence, because I kind of disdain social media and being on the spotlight, but I try to get other people to do it. Anyway, Scott.
If I may, can everybody hear me okay? Yes? Okay, good. Yes. I think there's something really important that can't get lost here, which is this is a model partnership. You know, it isn't so much patronage of the golf course, the disc golf course, that I think is important here, is the understanding of what it saves the community in terms of maintenance, in terms of security. There's other dimensions to this that are of real value to us and quite honestly save us money. And so I think it's really important that not get lost in terms of, you know, how many people are actually out there playing the course. So, and with that, I think it's important to remind ourselves that our job isn't to figure out what makes sense, you know, next month, next year, as a community. I mean, the survey is immensely important to the board for that. But this committee, we're charged with looking, you know, taking the long view here. And so I guess back to my point about the disc golf course is, you know, this is a great case study that is a win-win-win situation. And we need to figure out, you know, how to replicate that in other parts of the community. So, you know, not to get too, you know, theoretical here, but I think this is I'm glad the disc golf course was on the survey. You know, the results are disappointing. They're understandable, as Adam has explained, but I think there's a bigger lesson learned here for our committee. So that's it.
I think it's helpful because as a community, we have a responsibility too. If we want the course for whatever reason, if the association wants the course, then we need to support it. And I think part of the you know, it isn't promoted. I don't know necessarily. I know outside of the community and with the disc golf community, it's known, but I don't know how many people here know. And we do have younger people. There are young, you know, like teenagers even. There's probably some opportunity there, some marketing opportunity that just hasn't been touched on that, you know, so this helps identify that, hey, something's, you know, like we need to bring more attention to that if we want to change it, right? So
Good point. There's a deficiency, right?
Yeah,
So right.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point.
So, okay, so let me, hold on just a second. Let me grab this screen again. Sorry. Okay, so. All right, so basically, all right, so we had that. So that was that. Okay, so then we, sorry. Okay, so you know, you guys had talked about what you wanted on the infographic, and come up also in that last discussion. So this is roads. This is the result. Like when the question was, please rate your overall assessment of Sudden Valley roads, 21% of the online responses said below average. 11% of the random sampling said below average. So you can see that the majority, no matter what, whether it's random, I mean, online or random sampling, the majority of responses said that they felt it was average or above. I think that's the more accurate numbers that we can, but you can see, and again, I think this may come down to a perception from social media, because it trends 10% on certain topics. It's approximately, you know, that 9 or 10% variance, and it's only on certain topics. And otherwise, they're very, you know, we're within 2 to 3% of everything. So I think this is one of them. But no matter what, we know that average to above average, that's what people consider on the roads. And so it's pretty consistent. You've got this satisfactory, and the only one that even kind of comes in close is this timely road repair and maintenance. And that's on, again, let's jump over here, because if you see, this is the online results. 41% were dissatisfied. Random sampling was 35%, but 60% were satisfied. I'm just putting this out here because I'm not sure what we want to say about roads. Do we just want to go simply with the majority of people feel their overall, do we want to just stick with this one, rate that the overall assessment of Sun Valley roads is average to above average?
So one discussion could be, what sort of percentage difference do we find to be, alarming between the two? Is that like 5%, 10%, 15%?
Well,
That's one thing that I've kind of bounced around in my head a little bit.
I think 5% is okay. I think 10% is significant. And here, even if you saw a pattern, if the pattern was similar, then it really would, you could excuse it. But like what we have though is that, you jumped, your spread is bigger here, 35 to 59 as opposed to 41 to 50. So that's when it becomes significant, right? Now it's like 25%, 10% spread. So that's kind of the difference there between those two. So that would be the one that I'm not saying everything doesn't, it's our roads. We, pay attention to the roads, but that one seems to be one to pay a little more attention, which is the timely road repair and maintenance. And then the second one is the roadside maintenance. Not as significant, but it's still there. But again, the overall satisfaction rate is relatively high. So I guess my question is for the views article and for the infographic, like you guys had discussed about wanting to mention roads. Do we maybe don't want to mention roads in that? I was just trying to figure out what we want to do.
My thoughts would be, we can, largely discuss, the satisfaction, the overall maybe satisfaction of the roads, and maybe, that's largely, above average to above average. So people think we're doing a well enough job. And then maybe, you could point out, we could point out what appear to be our weakest points with our questions.
Okay.
So what's a nuance about the roads too? A lot of us live on the main roads, and those roads are pretty well taken care of. Other than sometimes the foliage getting onto the road and such. But those folks that live on the side roads and back roads, their voice probably is disproportionately louder. And also those roads perhaps aren't cared for as much. So that's something we maybe need to attend to, and perhaps in our analysis of the written responses, we can think about that as well. I'm wondering how that panned out.
On the roads. Well, so what AJ had just decided that for tonight, because of the timing, because we've got to get through these points for the news article and everything, that we would just hold off on the online,
Sure.
open-ended. That's what you're asking about.
Sorry,
right?
I just wanted to make the point that it might be a small percentage, but it's a very important percentage of people who might have troubles with the roads. That's all. Because hey, that was, it surprises me that there's such a great satisfaction. I think that's wonderful that there is. But
I put really bad on there.
Right.
My road,
well, you live up on Loganberry, so that's
it surprised me too.
It's a side road, and Gooseberry right below us. I'm not sure that folks are happy when there's a foot of snow there for 2 weeks or something.
Mhm.
Can't get on
I think it's a fair point though, Brian. Like, those people's voices may be marginalized a bit by the fact that a lot of people live off of main roads, and some of those side roads are, their voice isn't being heard necessarily in the survey because, they have less people to speak out.
So,
I'd be interested to see how that data looks on a map, and I bet it would actually make a map that would make sense. There's just stuff. Sometimes I'm driving out here and I'll turn down a road and I'm just like, what is going on with this one?
I think so.
No wonder people are unhappy.
Well, so I do think, and I don't mean to get off track because I was the one trying to hurry, but okay, for instance, and I really, really appreciate this year that they're actually sweeping the roads, because one of our biggest problems, because we get so much ice and snow on our road, and if they don't sweep all those leaves, then we're just sliding. Like as soon as it gets icy, we're sliding because it's, got pine needles and all that stuff. I appreciate it, but because of all that, the alligatoring in the road, the street sweeper keeps running off the road, and it now broken the road, and so now the road's all come up, and I was like, so I don't even know the process, which I should. Like, there seems like there should be like an easy way to like go on to the Sun Valley website and just like file like a maintenance, like I don't even want to call it a complaint, but like something like that, because I think that's part of why things just get talked about, because people don't know what they're supposed to do, including me, because I'm like, I don't know, what am I supposed to do about that, Joe?
Yeah, I know the county has like a intake system for, taking in like maintenance actions, or, see something, say something type things when it comes to maintenance of roads and drainage. Usually it's flooding catch basins, people saying, help, please help me.
And I don't want to complain
coming
too
down my
much,
driveway,
because I want the street sweeper to keep coming.
I think the easiest thing to do is just reach out to the office.
Okay.
And then, at least if we know it, then we can look at it.
Yeah, I was just thinking like,
if we don't know there's an issue, I can't address the issue.
No, I understand that. I was just thinking that it might be an easy thing if it was just something where people go online. I don't know. That's what I was thinking. I hate to call the office. Well, the other thing is, I figure somebody could just look at it while they were driving down here with the street sweeper if they knew to look for it. You know what I mean? So I hate to bother people while they're.
Sounds like something we could ask maybe Joshua to help us with on the communication.
Yeah, that should be something probably on the website.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, I didn't mean to get off track. Sorry. Okay, so hold on.
And that might be a good opportunity for us to say that, one of the things we want to do is make sure that the website has a place for people to make those kinds of not complaints, but requests.
Yeah, because sometimes you can't do anything about it, right? Or you've already seen it, or yeah, I agree. It might be, and it'd be easier than everybody bothering staff all the time over the same stuff, probably. I would think. I don't know, Joe. You think about it and you let us know. Let Joshua know. Okay.
I think it'd just be easier just to put something on the website. Kind of like what the county does.
All right. Sounds good. So the other thing that I think, let's see here. Okay, so this question, it said, please share what impact, if any, you think the economy will have on your income, your family income in the next 6 months. Basically, 55.5% of the community that responded on both said that they feel there will be a negative impact. The economy will have a negative impact to their household, which is significant. Mm-hmm. Then on the question of the barn, there's really no question. 65% of the online and 71% of the random sampling want the barn to be preserved and maintained. So that there's just no question. That's no confusion. That the community does not want a new barn. They don't want to tear that barn down and replace it. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean that as the long range planning committee that we won't have further discussion about the, like the interior facilities and amenities, and if it's appropriate to potentially put an adjacent pole barn or something less expensive, or I don't know what. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that doesn't renovating and maintaining that barn does not mean that all discussions regarding the barn are over and done with for us, because we still have to think about what's the most cost efficient way to deal with what's inside that barn. So does that make sense?
Just to jump into, you can see there that, like, the next highest section is somewhat supporting, the thought process of looking at an adjacent facility that's cost efficient, and it would make sense to include such facilities like, fitness equipment that are more high power draws, and get them out of a barn and into something a bit more, current standards. So I think, I think the question definitely lends itself to the fact that, the community would like to see the barn preserved, and then they'd like to, see what other thoughts, could be imagined with what's left of what we could do with those other two pads, basically.
Right.
And that was consistent with the open-ended questions that I looked at as well. It was definitely repair, preserve, not build a brand new shiny sparkly barn.
Yeah, the community wants that sense of history. That's all that's left. As you can see from the flag behind Kim, that won the flag contest because of that barn, I think on that picture. So, but I think that the community, they want, that they want a sense of community. They want to, we all want something to kind of rally around, right? And it's like, that's the one piece of history for Sudden Valley that's still here, and everybody really wants to keep it. And I don't, I know that there's.
I think we're all in agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Survey says,
right?
Yeah,
and
but again, I think it's important that we remind ourselves, what is this committee? It's not, do we knock it down next year or not? It's okay. Consensus is it should remain, but that use is going to evolve. The uses within it are going to evolve over the next 10 years. And that's our task, is to say, all right, we're going to optimize it as best we can. And so what does that thought process involve? So it's, again, I think it's really easy, really tempting to grab a hold of, the hundreds of survey results now at our disposal, all of which, that are really valid, but for what purpose? I think a lot of this is of value to today's board. But I think a lot of this has limited value for us. And I think we need to differentiate that. That's all.
Well,
just,
now
kind of slow ourselves down,
I
kind of look at.
You got to remember now, we're tasked with that. The board, even last year, and finance committee, tasked us with deciding what to do about that barn.
Yeah.
So,
well, we got a long way to go.
Well, but the thing is,
with an important first step.
Right. But I think we're pretty clear that it's fair enough to say, start taking care of that barn. Start protecting the barn, start maintaining the barn. Don't let the barn fall down while we're deciding what to do about anything else, because that's part of always what happens here. People talk about stuff and then everything gets put on hold. Everybody talks some more, right? And then it rots. Let's don't do that. Let's keep the barn. Everybody wants a barn. You can maintain that barn and still deal with being cost efficient and and having a, making good decisions moving forward, I think.
Do we have a current structural analysis on the barn?
Yeah, we've had a couple done in the last couple years.
Okay.
So
Everything.
Joe, why was P&W at the barn in August?
They were getting some information for me for windows, roofs, just
For
to start preliminary stuff, just so I could have an idea what we might be looking at going forward.
Okay, so the structural reports that came in January and February, Mike, it's structurally sound. As long as we don't change the use and we don't do, you don't try to do much more to it, but it is, we do need to consider, like AJ was saying, like what are we doing with these energy drains that are in there? I know that there's been ongoing issues with the gym, with the fitness center, because there's water that runs into there and causes problems and things like that. So we just have to look at the bigger picture. It doesn't mean that, there's a lot of things that we can do, because there are 2 other pads there.
Wasn't the structural soundness though, wasn't there a date on there? Was it 5 years? How many years was the structural soundness approved for?
No, I mean, they're not gonna give you, they're just looking at that moment in time.
Oh, okay. Somewhere, for some reason, I remember it being, or heard something about it being for 5 years, and I thought, oh, that's not very long.
But it's a barn.
I mean, if it was not structurally sound, they may give you like a time frame of like, if you do nothing, you basically can expect, this many more years before, you want to just altogether stop using it because it will be wholly unsafe or something. But usually if it's structurally sound, they're not,
there's no time.
They can't predict the future of how long, everything's going to last, like in that regard. And it does factor on how well you keep up with like painting and, that type of thing. All factors in, some of that old growth cedar siding, if you keep up with painting it constantly, it could last, longer than our lifetimes for sure. I mean, that stuff's probably semi-original from what was put on there, and it's still, there's some bad sections for sure, but largely a lot of it's in like, relatively okay, minus needing TLC with paint and stain and whatnot.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. So, okay. Any other, so that is for another day, and don't worry, Scott, nothing's happening other than that, like what Joe's talking about, the just taking care of the basics, and then AJ will go into more about next steps on what we'll do to, as far as these discussions with the community and everything. So, okay, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd open the floor. You guys had a while to kind of take a look at the survey tables and look at kind of the written statements that we have put together. If anyone has any, major concerns with what we have, now would be a good time to discuss that, and then we're going to kind of, everyone after the last meeting emailed over kind of their thoughts on the infographic, and Josh is starting to work on that for us. We got a little busy with the AGM and stuff, but we're working on getting a draft of that put together. And then, largely that preliminary survey results report that we went over at the last meeting that you guys had, we can add some charts and stuff to that, before we put that out to the community that kind of graphically depict some of our statements. Everyone's brain chemistry learns in different ways, so we can have some verbal and visual, portions of the report for the various learning styles people have. helps keep people more engaged that way. So I don't know if anyone has any concerns that they saw, between anything.
So, I'm sorry. So real quick though, can I just finish it out just so I can be sure that everybody,
Oh, yeah.
so that, yeah, I'm sorry. It's my
Sorry.
fault. I started time. Okay, hold on. All right. Okay, so we discussed the dance barn. So the maintenance building, as you can see, basically where we are is that 42% of the people say they want to replace it. 36% say no new building. And then we have 22% that say don't know. So, that's something that we're going to have to talk about. And AJ can talk about that. Okay, so then on golf, and I know you guys talked about that before, but these are the numbers. And as you can see, there's virtually no difference between the online and the random sampling. You're off, by a couple of percentage points. But it does show that 57% of the community want to see some type of change between the relationship with the golf course and the community. 35%, 35.5% on the online, and 31% on the random sampling say no change. So a third say no change at all. But then we have the 60%, and that's including this 18% that marked parks. And that was, the reason it says 18 right here is because one of the parks questions says convert to a 9-hole course and community park, and one says convert to a community park. This 18, the reason I put this here is because this is significant. This is the only question that allowed to actually for there to be no course. And it says 18.5% of the community marked that. So again, we know nobody's wanting to, we're not taking any action about the course or anything like that to remove the course, but it is significant that the community does want to see some type of change. The majority of the community. What that means, that's another discussion, but the numbers are significant and they're consistent. Okay, so then on the rec special assessment, again, the way we worded these questions, even though there were 2 options to give a little on each kind of like support funding with additional support the what the rec special assessment currently is funding through additional funds, or when the special assessment ends, or no additional funds. And so, but we gave, like 2 options in each category. And, but you can see that the answers here, basically the majority of people consistently say that they don't want to, this is the random sampling, and this is the online, but no matter what that number is, they consistently say they don't want to pay more money. They're basically saying, yeah, I want these things, but I want you to find it in the budget. I don't want to even, they don't want another special assessment, which we shouldn't be doing anyway for our that shouldn't be a special assessment, but for our operational type stuff. But they also, so the thing to consider here is, number one, I'm suggesting we don't even consider, that's a complicated issue, so we don't put that in the views article or the infographic. But secondly, when we do discuss it, I think, the couple of options is, can we find the funding in additional areas of the budget? And if not, then it's a matter of, educating the community, or looking at these user fees. You know, so those are all things that we need to think about moving forward. But right now, I think it's just too complicated. Do you guys agree that we just don't deal with that for this next month in the article and the infographic? I mean, the results are clear, but I think it's just.
I personally think it's a fairly complicated issue. It's something we can address through our final report, you know, and largely that is something that will be, you know, the board is going to be tasked with, you know, to figuring out what to do, you know, in that regard.
I'm of the opinion that we don't hide information from difficult subjects. I'm of the opinion that we can just state the facts of the things that are complicated but not there's no conclusions being drawn. We're just sharing information, right?
So this is actually not for our final report. This is just, I was just asking because I have to narrow it down for the infographic and the views article. So I'm just trying to.
I agree with Kim completely, and maybe for a different reason. But you know, we've got we've got a very critical situation right here. Our numbers are dwindling on this committee. You know, I don't know if you're scoring at home, but I think there's like half a dozen of us left now. And, you know, Adam and I have seen this movie before, and you don't want to end up with a handful of people making a decision for a community of thousands of people as far as policy goes. So we absolutely have to keep the public's interest. We've got to build on it. We need more committee members. We need more interaction with the community. So, you know, whatever is rolled out at this point is just absolutely key. And I think it's easy to highlight, you know, in an infographic or whatever method, the things we agree upon. You know, there's something to be said for that. But I think there's more to be said right now for, I don't want to stir up controversy, or I don't want to light fuses, but you know, there's got to be a certain edge to this, or a certain intrigue to, you know, whatever is put forward in the views, or basically whatever our next steps with the community are. I think I agree with Kim. There's no point in shying from what really are 3-4 central issues. Joe, you go ahead.
No, you keep going. When you're done, I'll chime in.
No, you get the point. You know what I mean? I'm not advocating anything specific right here. I just think, you know, let's be mindful that this is really important. You know, we've kind of built some momentum with the survey. Again, I think we need to be careful to differentiate between the long-term and short-term stuff, but the long-term stuff gets a little uncomfortable. And you know, what I personally learned from the survey is on those questions, you have predictably polar opposites. The numbers may not be that predictable, but you've got, you know, it's very easy to say I'm for this or I'm against it. But the bulk of the survey respondents are somewhere in the middle with kind of mushy answers. And, you know, it's on us to kind of double back on that and say, we need to better understand the middle, you know, on this topic, this topic, this topic. So I think if we're thoughtful about doing that, we may be successful in drawing more people into the process. And that ultimately is, I think, essential.
You're saying, son, you're gonna have to trim it down for the views. Why would we have to do that? We can tell the views we want to put all this stuff in. I wouldn't be so concerned with trying to pare it down to make it fit for them. I would just put it in there and make them fit to us.
So the last meeting that I wasn't, I watched the last meeting, and Scott and some other people actually said, let's just focus on the positive when we put this out. And so that's what I was trying to do. We do have a final report that's going to have like The document that you all saw that was the beginning, that preliminary report, that's just the beginning of the final report. The final report will have every detail in it. It'll have every detail in it, including all of the responses to the open-ended questions. There's not going to be anything missing. And what AJ was explaining is, and then in early, either January or February, the long-range planning committee will host a town hall meeting to introduce those results, all of the results, to the community, and allow them to have discussions. So we'll not only be able to talk to them about those results, but they'll be able, we can kind of focus group too, to be able to get more input on these topics at that time. So, be beneficial. But it's not really about shying away. I was just trying to, I heard the directive that we were trying to stay kind of positive.
I think that was Sonia. I think that was for the article in this month where we did have just a brief, I think wasn't AJ trying to give a highlight or a highlight report, and it was very brief. I think that was what that was for.
I sent out a thank you to the community for participating. It had a little snippet on, the question where 80% of the community rated it as a good place to live and would recommend it to friends. The goal then was to create an infographic, which I think we had largely with our last meeting discussed those things that were very conclusive. I think Kim, you had mentioned that in your email after the meeting.
Yeah,
large
80%. Yeah.
Largely people are satisfied with the roads and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I
think that was
communicated with Brent about a December. I have some space reserved on the front page so we can have color and everything with the infographic. I don't think we can include everything. There are going to be some space constraints with what Brent can work with. Josh said he can make the infographic PDF as long, as you need it, but he's like, it gets a bit cumbersome when you start to do that. And so my thoughts were kind of focusing on these main issues that we kind of hashed out in the preliminary report draft that we put together, and focusing on kind of those big issues that people want to know about. People want to know the results about the golf course. They want to know the results about the dance barn. They want to know the results about, parks and trails, and they want to see some of that.
The maintenance building.
So I checked the emails
those are
that
kind
you
of the
guys.
big questions, and then there's some other stuff that just stands out completely that we can sprinkle in there, as well as some additional tidbits. With the final survey report, we would obviously have everything included, all the raw data. We'll have the open-ended questions. We can show we've been working on coding those open-ended questions, which takes a little bit of time, and working through that. And a lot of that stuff's been done. I'm actually, I think, the one that's kind of holding things up at this point. And that'll all be included in the final report. This preliminary report is really, I think, to give the community a snapshot of the main issues that they, obviously want to know about and care about and get discussed the most, so that they don't have to wait all the way until January to get they want some closure in their, and so that's the main goal here. And I think, loud and clear that we should, include those things that are conclusive, and then, and then make sure we don't want to get too crowded with everything. Josh can start squeezing things down and inserting more stuff, but becomes more clustered and harder for the community to just pick up on. So we'll have to kind of pick and choose some of the stuff. And to be honest, we'll give Josh, we'll give him the most important things that we want, included and stuff. and then give him a little latitude to come back to us with, you know, something, you know, so he can be more creative with it and not be constrained by, you know, whatever box our committee's thinking in necessarily.
So I took all of your emails, you know, because you guys responded after that last meeting. I took all of the emails. I made sure to include everything that you guys mentioned in the emails. Like AJ was saying, everything that was conclusive. And I also tried to follow the directive, because he, you know, basically had said that it was exactly that. It was going to be a tidbit in the views because we didn't want to give them everything in the views for December, because we wanted to do the town hall and to release the full report. And so it was to just give them a taste, right, of everything. So that's what I was trying to do. So that the Excel that I've been showing you, that is, to me, those are the numbers that are conclusive and that they match. You know, there's no dispute in between the random sampling and the online results, and you know, there's just no muddy answers. The thing is, I just was bringing up the fact that with the rec special assessment, the results say conclusively, if you're just looking at the numbers, that people do not want to pay for that. They don't want to pay any more money. That's why I said I don't know. I wasn't running away from it, but it was more of, it's a complicated issue, because it may be that can we find that money in the budget? If we can't, then that's additional conversations that we need to have. And that's why I said it's kind of complicated. I'm a little hesitant to put it as if it's a conclusion, even though we know that that's what the majority of people want. But
just because something's a conclusion doesn't mean that the board's going to do anything about it. We're just reporting information, right?
Yeah, but it just is like, it's not really, it's a kind of like a muddy thing, because you still got to figure out use fees, budget, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I don't know that it's going to be clear, or it's just going to create like more confusion, is all I was saying.
Right.
Yeah, I would be an advocate of less chaos, the better at this point in time. We're in a period of transition here, trying to heal a bit, you know, as a community. So perhaps, you know, leaving that complicated issue out of the views and putting it in our final report might be the best option. That's what I'm thinking, in terms of community unity, right?
So you guys think about it, and I'll finish. I'll actually get through this, and then we can, because there's only, okay, I'm almost done. Okay, so, all right, so where were we? So the course, sorry about that. Okay, so this was interesting. So the trails, obviously, I mean, everything about the trails, you know, overwhelming support, and also about exploring sidewalk alternatives. The one that there was some variance was with the online, 47% supported creating like some type of outdoor fitness trail, where the random sampling, I mean, sorry, not supported, opposed, 47% opposed. On the random sampling, over 57% opposed doing like a fitness trail, which is interesting. So I don't know, but anyway, that's why this is showing here. But other than that, the trails had tremendous support. The other thing that's actually sad that should be mentioned is it says, how much of an impact do you believe your involvement has on Sun Valley? 67% said little to no impact. So 67% of our membership thinks that they have no impact on their community.
Do you think that I wonder if that question was misinterpreted. I wonder if people looked at it like they're not involved. I don't know. I just feel like that's so high. Like, that, is that to say that they've been trying to get involved, but nothing's happened?
Well, I can say that, you know, a year and a half of board meetings being packed with people pleading their cases about rising dues may be contributing to that factor.
Okay, yeah, that's a
I
good
don't know.
point. That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
I personally witnessed many meetings with, 20 people talking at them, or, 15 people.
Mhm.
When I started first going to meetings, there was like 3 people there, if that. You may be the only one sitting there. So,
Mhm.
if they came and spoke and they felt like they weren't heard, that would be.
Why that is so
I mean, I
high.
don't think that's the only reason. I think it's a mixture of things, but I think that probably contributes.
Well, fair enough.
Which is sad. Okay, so this is our gate responses, which is also interesting. So if you're this first column just talks about the percentage of overall responses online per gate. About 9-10% did not.
Gate 3 represent.
Gate 3. Well, so it's interesting. So then I calculated it per gate, right? Like per number of per billable lots per gate, and those responses. So when you do it that way, the gate 1 had the on the online responses, gate 1 had the highest number of responses. On the random sampling, the mailed, it was gate 3 had the highest number, and gate 3 came in obviously second also on the online. So the weird thing here was the variance with gate 2, which was gate 2 had a 15.5% of all responses, 24% per gate. Of their gate, and but on the random sampling, only 9% returned their. I don't know. It's just really, it's not in sync with their other. Like the rest of them stayed. If you can see, they pretty much stayed true, but.
I wonder if they were like, I did it online.
Yeah, it was really weird. Those other gates all stayed very consistent, but gate 2, I don't know what happened. I don't know what that is, but so I do have to mention, I don't want to talk too much about the open-ended questions, but I have to say about gate 1, so when in that question where it talks about what do you like most about Sudden Valley, literally no other gate mentioned their gate. But there were several gate 1 people that wrote gate 1. And it was like no other gate came in on what do you like most, but gate 1, which was actually kind of, that was interesting too. So a lot of
They're very proud people.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like gate 1 pride
very
happening. And, okay, so then the other is this length of time. So the primarily, and I know this is across a long period of time, it was 10 years. That was where the majority answered. The 32% had lived here. So a third of the people who responded, the majority, have been here 5 to 14 years. The interesting part to me about this was that almost 30% have only been here. They've been here less than 4 years that responded to this. So, as we already know, and we've talked about that, there's a lot of new owners, and those new owners are involved because that's a high margin. That's only a 4-year period of time. I've got a 10-year period. You know what I'm saying? Like we've got this gap versus that gap. So, it's pretty significant, I think. And so this is also interesting. So we have the scale of, how likely would you recommend Sudden Valley to a friend? And so 55% said that they would recommend Sudden Valley to a friend. That's again a very significant number. It's a really high satisfaction rate. So I think when you have people that our community overall is really happy, and so I think they're satisfied and they want to be here, and they obviously care, and I think that's also why there is a lot of the, it sounds like, like Scott was saying, yeah, this polarizing thing, but it is because people care and they, and they want to be here and, and everything. So I think when we see where people are unhappy or they're not satisfied, those are the places, we need to pay special attention to. But yeah, I mean, to me, this is a surprising survey. I have to be totally honest. It was different than what I expected, and it was incredibly positive, I think, for the most part. And I'm proud of it. So, okay. So anything you guys, so I know we went over what was in that preliminary report. And these are what I just showed you is everything that actually shows that we can say it was very clear. This is what people are, the answers, there was no confusion about what they were trying to say and those results. So I guess it's just a matter of.
I just have a question. When is the content due to the views in order to make the December edition?
I have to go back and look at my emails. I coordinated with Brent when I sent in the November ones, telling him I'd like some color space, for Josh's graphic. I don't remember. I think it's probably coming up here pretty quick. I think he does. I think he waits a little bit in December because of Santa, breakfast with Santa normally, but we're not having that this year, so I don't know. Joe?
Normally, Brent would like it the 22nd-ish, give or take a day or so. I know he likes to try to get it, all the stuff, as much stuff in there as he can. And if the last board meeting runs over, he always holds spots for that. But it's generally right around the 22nd.
So it's safe to say it's before Thanksgiving, right? I mean, before
give or take with the holidays and stuff. Yeah.
He's somewhat flexible.
So pretty fast. I guess I was probing to figure out, is there any way we could have a preview of the graphics or the content, but that's probably impractical given that that's a week away, right?
Oh, I think we can definitely provide that.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be via email, I think.
Yeah, sure.
We can solicit any feedback, make some adjustments. I think we want to, we do have to, for the infographic, we can include more in the preliminary report that we include, kind of with the infographic. So some of we don't have to have everything on the infographic. I think we touch upon, some of the main positive things that we see, all the good, feedback and the fairly satisfied and above average satisfaction on a lot of things. And, we can put, a few of those bigger ticket items like, people don't want to see the golf course go away, but they want to see, it do a little bit better. They want, people don't want to see the dance barn go away. We want to see that preserve, and then in the report, we can even elaborate a little bit more than maybe what the infographic does as well. And so I think largely with what Josh did with last year's survey, we're probably looking at, a dozen or so, main issues to create kind of a one-page snapshot, and then go with the report, we can add some graphical depictions as well too, to kind of make it look a little bit better. The report, I was not planning on putting in the views, just to be clear. We would just post that to the website. We can push it out via social media, e-blast, like those types of things, to the community. We can maybe provide a link in the views or something to say, go to the LRPC website if you want to read the preliminary report. One of the ones that I think for me when looking at the stuff is the maintenance building discussion. I think is interesting. There is a large number saying, that they're unsure just entirely. And so it could, very easily, if all that 20, I think it's like 22-ish% or something. I don't remember off the top of my head right now, but that if we provided additional information, because it does feel largely like a lot of people want some more information based on the responses were kind of spread out pretty evenly across a lot of the stuff, as far as contracting services out got a fair response rate. No building did, a whole, re-examining what we do with it in a cost-effective building got a good thing, but the don't know could help, determine a bit more what sort of path we would want to take. I would maybe think, not really getting too much into that one, as it seems like maybe there's some larger discussions to have about that specific
Couldn't agree
building.
more. And AJ, that's a perfect example of what I was trying to illustrate earlier, is that's not a long-range planning decision. It's a very useful near-term decision for the board. And in my judgment, you had a third that clearly are, we don't need any new building. And a third saying, I'm all good for a new building subject to further study. And it's the in-between, the third that you don't know which way they're blowing. But honestly, the decision on Area Z, that new building, is of little consequence to our committee. You know what I mean? I don't know what we do with that information going forward. So I don't want to waste valuable airspace pushing on that topic as our committee when, there's other truly long range decisions, policy areas to be explored.
I have a question. So there's already been a decision to have a new building in Area Z. Is that for maintenance?
No.
What's the new building for? I'm just curious.
There's
Sorry,
there's no decision that's been made. It's just preliminary discussions from years ago about putting in a new maintenance building.
They've been talking since like 2009 about a maintenance building there, I think. There's been a number of ideas tossed about and conceptual designs created over, that span of time, I believe. And, nothing, it got inserted, the new building there got inserted onto the reserve study in 2018 or 19, there. And so that's like largely what's created the driving discussion around it recently.
Isn't it on the permit? Isn't there a permit for a new building too? Or was that just for the sprung structure? I thought that whole area got permitted that allows for building there too, right?
Now, it got decommissioned from the environmentalist from years ago when there was underground tanks. That just happened. But the only permit would have been, there had to be a permit for the sprung structure, but that would be.
And then the fire hydrant. So
yeah,
that didn't include a building, right? Is that what you're saying?
Well, that fire hydrant feeds for the sprung structure.
Okay.
And what is
I recall there was one approval that they got for the building in the maintenance area, the sprung structure, and it may have been the SEPA approval or something, which is a wise decision to make if you're doing a SEPA checklist and SEPA review. Adding an additional building to that review is means nothing really in the the submitting that permit. But I would be if that may be what you're talking about, Sonia, because I remember
Yeah. About that, I just thought
from a couple years
something
ago
about it was allowing for another building to be put there. So I was just curious.
I believe the conditional use permit allows for a new structure on top of the sprung structure.
What does it mean, Joe, when you said it was decommissioned by the?
Years ago, Kim, there was underground storage tanks for diesel and everything at Area Z. And it was an ongoing environmental issue, and Sun Valley finally got it cleaned up, and it is now it's off the list.
Okay.
And that happened. This has been an ongoing issue, I want to say 10, 12 years, maybe longer. And within the last year, we finally got the stamp of approval from the state that it is no longer on the list.
Okay.
No,
I think I remember
it's-
that story. I just didn't know the history. So thank you.
I think it's perfectly reasonable to have a discussion of the history of Area Z, including the issue with the storage tanks and those other things as part of the future land use plan.
Mhm.
We talk about what has happened there, or what's happening there now, and what we think we might want to see happen there in the future.
Mhm. Mhm. And
Makes
let's,
sense.
I kind of want to, I don't want to get way off on this, but I think moving forward to, we talked about this and then we got lost at when COVID happened about doing a meeting regarding long range planning committee's mandate and what we are supposed to do according to the bylaws. And we're a committee that is not only mandated by the board, but by a vote of the membership. And the bylaws spell out our role and responsibility. And I'm not sure that we're all on the same page about some of the things that we're being asked to do, but we've been following the bylaws pretty much to the letter. And so we're, I know, Scott, like when you're saying, well, it's up to, it's the board's responsibility, but what's happening is that the board, even the previous board, is asking us, do this legwork for us. Give us, do this for us. You need to tell us what we need to do. So it's the board can't do everything, right? So that's why this committee's in place. That's why other committees are in place. And so so we do have a responsibility to, figure out these answers. I guess, so I wasn't really clear what your concern was. I know you were kind of hesitating on some things, but just like with the maintenance building, what Mike's talking about, that's a whole, what we've talked about these work groups of creating work group on these specific areas. It's it'll fall under the land use, do focus groups, potentially another town hall type meeting, that type of thing, but to look more into it. And Mike and Adam have been talking about a lot of that stuff, but
Let me try to explain myself a little better. First of all, the name of our committee is long-term, and maybe we need to change the name of the committee. But if it's long-term planning, I don't know what that means to you. I don't know what it means to others on the committee, but to me, it's something beyond the next budget year. That's, I guess, fundamentally, where I stand. And so we're tasked with looking at the implications of things several years, 5 years, 10 years down the road. And back to Mike's point, I absolutely agree with everything he said. It's one thing to, the Area Z building is one small component, one important component of Area Z, but the long-term challenge for us is to really talk about Area Z beyond next budget year or the next building. There's much broader, more important things that aren't being addressed that have implications for this community down trail. So, I hope that helps.
I agree.
And get into a debate tonight, Sonia.
No, it's not a debate. I just want to.
I don't think any of that is inconsistent with the charter and expectations of this committee.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing too, just to note, 3 years is not a very long, far out time, and projects of the magnitude of a building are not it's not something that typically is just like, oh, we can do this in a year. I mean, Joe can attest, how long have the surf projects been ongoing? They're 3 years running before we close them out finally. So the reality of us in the board likely just being oh, the maintenance building needs to be decided this budget cycle. There needs to be a long, hard look at the reserve study and all of that stuff, as well. That's, that the board needs to undertake on top of, this committee is going to do some legwork in that regard as well. The board needs to learn how to rely on the committees to provide, the things that it needs to do as well, so like we as a board need to learn how to delegate some tasks down to the various groups. That includes long range planning, parks, all of them really. We want to give them some clear direction on like the types of things that we really, need, to get done and need to see, and the types of things that we'd like to get done and like to see, if we have some time after getting through some of our needs and stuff. The committee's called long range planning, but 3, 5, 10-year plan is in the grand scheme of this type of effort is relatively short term. I mean, Whatcom County Comprehensive Plan is like it took
20-year plan.
It took years and years just to put it together. And then what'd you say, Mike? It's a 25-year?
20-year. The
20-year increments.
The Growth Management Act says that comprehensive plans should project over 20 years, and that they should you should consider a major overhaul every 5 years, and you have the option to do other amendments on an annual basis.
Yeah, and so our long range planning committee falls largely in between what I would call a near term vision mixed with a long term outlook on things, and so I just kind of wanted to make that point. I think.
So we're tasked with doing a 3, 5, and 10-year plan. That's what the way it is. So 3, 5, and 10-year with an annual update. And the description really it actually is pretty much a strategic planning committee. I don't know why they chose long range. That is an incorrect word for the way that they've written our duties. But it's definitely and like Mike was saying, we're talking about putting this planning process in place. That's not going to be simple. It'll probably take us a couple of years to get all those pieces in place at a minimum.
And I'd just like to add too, the goal here is, and the board needs help with this, as well as an organizational structure that is, clear and coherent and concise and stable. And, it's something that the community can, largely rally behind, and then, they can feel confident and comfortable in the situations that we have here. Raising of dues, was a major issue in our community. And so we need to show them the stability that can be created off of that. And I think that's, it's a lot, it's a big task, but it's a large part of this committee is going to have a large role in that process and helping create that structure of the whole community as a global unit and looking at things more collectively.
Yeah, can I just, and I'll be done after this, but I want to be real clear too. We're not making the decisions, right? We're just creating the framework for that allow those decisions. We're the community, the board, all of the stakeholders, the GM, every relevant stakeholder to whatever it is that we're talking about. We're not making the decision. So, but like what AJ was just saying is we're trying to put a framework together so that the community can trust that planning process, and that all of those pieces are going to come together, and the right decision will be made, the best decision, with community input, with board input, with, like I said, every relevant stakeholder input, and so that we have a sustainable, successful community. in the long term, not just a group of people making decisions. I don't want to make decisions for this HOA.
Data-driven decisions.
And I think that's important that's an important point. We are not here to make the decisions. We are here to provide all of the information that's needed for a board and an ongoing, ever-changing board of directors to make good, stable, sound decisions off of, so that we don't have to sit and recreate the wheel consistently over and over, with projects and stuff like this.
Mm-hmm. That way we don't get a road board in there just willy-nilly deciding what they want to do for the community.
Mm-hmm.
But
or blocking off one piece of it, because again, you've got a whole there's an organization, relevant stakeholders mean relevant stakeholders. It can be Whatcom County, it can be staff, it can be the GM, it's the community. Every one of those are valuable pieces, and so you've got to allow for each of those to participate in the process.
Sounds like we're all in agreement on that.
Yep.
So I guess, for me, the only thing that we had something in our preliminary results about the maintenance barn, or our preliminary report. I wonder if we should just hold off on including that until the final report that we do, and we can have another kind of discussion on some of these. The next meeting we'll obviously have to discuss some of these, less clear ones, which a lot, like Sonia said earlier, a lot of them are the results are fairly clear for us to see. So there's not a whole lot of them that we have to, spend a large amount of time discussing. It'll just be a matter of how we want to frame that, statistical data set, to the community in that final report. What is that final verbiage we settle on? Do we leave it more like we feel like we need to ask the community more input and get some more input from staff and this and that, and pull these things together? Or, do we feel like we have some clear answer, but maybe we need to, explore that specific a little bit more? So, yeah. But yeah, I think to your point, Scott, I think we can get a graphic in front of the committee before it goes to the views. I think Josh will probably put together a quick kind of draft of something, a layout, and then, get some approval from us, and then we'll, kind of fine tune anything from there, based on comment. And then we can basically do the same thing with the preliminary survey report. I think largely a lot of the stuff we already had in it is pretty clear and concise, stuff. And so, maybe there's a few percentages we can update in there or whatever, and that type of thing. But largely a lot of that can probably be how it is, and we can just add some charts and stuff to go along with some of those talking points.
I think I've spoken enough tonight. I think the community is going to be grateful for anything that they get. I have no doubt that Josh and the views are going to, put it out there, as something we're all proud of. So I think that the fundamental challenge is to just build momentum with this, whatever the product is, and towards a town hall or whatever in January. But I just, I remain skeptical because I've been through this. It's hard to co-op interest in something that's abstract. And so I think the challenge for us all is to figure out how do you not just put the stuff out there that's easy breezy, but also not overstate the things we disagree on. It really all needs to lead to the next step. And hopefully intrigue people enough to say, well, that's an interesting answer. I want to be part of the next step of this, you
Well, I
know,
think,
so.
and I think that's key, Scott, is that you want people to, you want them to be involved. And that's going to be the thing, is trying to encourage them, and when they can hopefully start to see that this is paying off, that they're being heard, they'll want to participate
Right.
more. And I do want to tell you too, I know you're a little afraid about the committee, but we really don't have dwindling numbers. We actually only have dwindling numbers because 2 of the committee members are now new board members. So we actually didn't really lose them. We just won them in another way.
Listen, congratulations, and we were thin to begin with, but you know, I'll take you back a year ago. Different circumstances, admittedly, completely. The long range planning committee began with 25 people. And Adam and I watched that dwindle over the months for a variety of reasons. I will count you all. I can do it on one hand in terms of the committee members. And that has got to be doubled, tripled, you know, going forward. It just, there's got to be more people, you know.
But this is the committee.
If they're not interested, they need to be made interested. And so whatever blend of things makes that happen, I'm all for it.
Well, remember too, the committee is mandated to 9 people in the bylaws. And,
Yeah.
you know, I sat down with all the chairs, and we, you know, this is something too that like was largely discussed. We need to, and this will happen more after we move past this survey and start moving into, you know, this planning process and building out the framework. You know, we need to engage these other committees. We need to go back to the board and say, we recommend to the board that they ask this committee to go take a look at this specific thing because it's important for this reason. And you know, and then the board can say, yes, we refer that to that committee. We think that's a good idea. You know, please, you 2 committees work together on, you know, bringing something back to the board, you know, or bringing long range planning, what they need to embed in their, you know, framework, whatever it is, you know, it'll probably be largely a both of those kind of things. You know, and we need to learn how to delegate the tasks that we need to delegate, and, you know, and focus on the tasks that we need to focus on, you know, and I think that'll help.
Yeah. So just addressing that. So, you know, we talked about, we had put together, so this is the long range plan committee. I know you guys had a huge long range plan committee, but we literally are going by the number that's in the bylaws. And then what we discussed earlier in the year, Scott, was that we would just do these small work groups because they're more efficient. And that's how we've been doing them. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we got kind of slowed down. But soon we're going to be transitioning, and it'll start to get much busier with a lot of those work groups. Like Mike's taking the land use, and you and I'll be working together on the, you know, the revenue type thing. And so those work groups will then, you can then pull in other community members and that type of thing. But it's just not very efficient because, first of all, we're the only voting members of long range planning anyway. And it's already sometimes can get cumbersome just with us, you know. I'm not quite sure what you're talking about.
Well, we're running short of time tonight. Let's just get back to 9 members. You know, I think that's a good building block.
We should be able to get back to 9 members with our December meeting. Me and Brian will get,
all right,
you know, Richard and Ty and one other approved at the December, I think it's 10th board meeting. The board scheduled it.
17th.
17th.
17th, because
Kim's birthday was the 10th. That's right. So 17th board
I'm going to be able to do nothing on my birthday because of COVID.
And then that same meeting, those, you know, Richard, Ty, and whoever the third person is that we get approved through the board can participate. And then at that meeting, we can have the committee select the other 2 to fill those 2 terms. They'll be able to join in then in our January meeting. I guess we could try to coordinate all the applicants are available. It just seems a bit cumbersome for just a committee meeting. I don't know, Brian, how many applicants have we gotten so far? I think Oryx has been sending those to you.
I have one applicant so far.
Okay, so we got to get the word out. So we'll start hammering, and
What's the
asking
deadline?
people.
What's your deadline?
I mean,
Is
we
it-
have till we
is it-
can accept applications all the way up until we have to submit the board, packet agenda,
Okay.
basically.
Well, there's time. And
So there's
Scott,
still a
you
good
voted for me,
few
Scott,
weeks.
it's your fault partially that I'm leaving. So just keep that in mind.
We're gonna miss you, Kim.
That was the biggest disappointment with was knowing that we're going to be losing some members because of the board member, community member balance.
Yeah. I can sit in the audience.
That's right.
Yeah.
I can be a panelist.
That's right. That's right. So I'm actually not sure how many openings there are. I should actually be able to count the screen. So what are you saying? There's going to be three openings total, correct? Am I right?
Yeah, after, Richard and Ty brought on with kind of the assumption that they would continue on since they only participated in one meeting. And then we have to fill one more 3-year term, and that's, by the chair and another committee member. And then the committee decides the 2 vacancies that Brian and Kim will leave, with Kim leaving the committee for finance committee and the treasurer role, and then Brian stepping into the chair role as opposed to being just a committee member. So so basically after Richard and Ty, we'll get 1 3-year term, 1 2-year term, and 1 1-year term, basically, to fill it out. And whoever the committee selects for Brian will serve the remainder of Brian's term or the remainder of Kim's term. That's what the bylaws say to do.
And I'm the one that's saying this, but I'm hoping that we can get more women on the committee.
I'm sure we can get more.
That's what I was thinking too, Mike.
We'll
Be good to have a balance.
we'll try to make some social media posts and stuff here over the next couple weeks, and get the word out that way that all committees are accepting applications right now, so it's not just us. And we all are here in this committee, but to be perfectly frank, based on the participation numbers, Parks and Trails seems to be the kind of the party committee that everyone wants to be a part of. So, but we'll find people. I'm sure of it. There's a couple people who applied the last time that I have not had a time to reach back out to, that I told them I would, and I plan to do that so they can submit an application again today and hopefully they'd be willing to still participate. I think there's at least 2 or 3 people from when we brought Richard and Ty on that were in that same category.
Were you going to say something, Scott?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
If I can make one more observation based on past experience, when I've worked with long-range planning committees in communities that had several other committees as well, it seemed to work very effectively to have a member of the long-range planning committee on other committees so that they could report back and we could have better communication between committees.
Ooh, spies.
Exactly.
You got one for parks and trails and rec.
Well, there's also transportation and.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually wonder about those, because there's questions that come up in the Parks and Trails and Rec Committee. We're getting late, but and it's almost like that's better directed towards transportation because it's talking about safety on streets and that sort of thing. And that very quickly spin out of out of control because it's maybe the wrong committee to be tackling.
Maybe that's something we can talk about in email, and we can kind of figure that out. Like if anybody wants to, if we want to do that, because I agree. I think it'd be good because we kind of, you know, if we're trying to create this framework where there's cohesion and consistency, and the committees are part of that, right? It would make sense what you're suggesting, Mike. So just be a matter of if we can get everybody to get on one committee, right? So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, we got some representation. We got Parks, Finance Committee.
Oh, yeah.
Are you on any others, Brian? Or is it just long range? I can't remember now.
I think it's just long range right now.
Okay.
Slacker.
EPC was one we had last year.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, you know, we gotta learn, like what Sonia said, we gotta learn how to all collaborate together a bit, and that structure hasn't really been utilized. So it'll be, you know, we'll have to build it a little bit. It'll all take time. I don't have anything major. I don't know if anyone else has any major concerns with any of the statements. Then it doesn't sound like anyone has any major concerns with some of the statements that we have outlined. We'll do some tweaking and provide kind of an updated final draft for review and proofread and that type of thing, and then make any quick revisions and stuff that we need to do there, and kind of do the same thing with an infographic as well. And then we can kind of have all that ready to go here soon. I don't know if anyone else has anything for the good of the group. We do have one attendee, Anne, if she would like to speak to property owner comments, if no one else has anything else. I guess a big thank you to Kim for participating over the last year, and we definitely appreciate all your hard work that you put in.
I can't
And
believe
maybe we'll see you again next year on the committee or something. We'll see as a board member. We'll see what the next year's board decides.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. It's been nice to meet all of you, and we've, in a very short time and under unusual circumstances, we've done some really good work with our survey. So I think we should all be really proud. And it was really nice participating with you all to help to say I did that. I helped you all do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have a new chair.
Yep, we have a new chair. Brian, thank you for taking on that responsibility.
Yay.
Greatly appreciated from my end.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm enthused to take it on. So
And then
didn't really change that much.
We'll transition over. We'll have Brian run in the meetings from here on out then. And I'll just be the second fiddle here. And yeah,
I appreciated AJ taking over tonight. I still have my training wheels on, so I'll take them off next meeting. So.
It's a quick turnaround too from the AGM to now, and lots of stuff happening in between. So yeah. Anne, do you have any comments for us?
Thanks.
I think she knows the ropes on how to get brought over at this point.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna take that as a no. So yeah, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Have a great night, everybody.
Have a great night, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, John, for setting everything up.
Thanks,
Thanks, John.
Bye, John.
Thank you.
Have a good night, everybody.